Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UC San Diego Career Podcast, Designing Your Career and Life, hosted by the Career Center in partnership with Alumni Relations. My name is Hassan Akmal. I'm the Executive Director of Career and Professional Development at the University of California, San Diego. I'm the host of the UC San Diego Career Podcast, featuring diverse professionals discussing provocative career-related topics that inspire, transform, and empower you on a path to meaningful work. The topic of today's podcast is authenticity in the workplace. This is episode 18 in season 6. The season's theme is skills are the new currency. Each season we align a different theme to help you design your path forward in a time of disruption and uncertainty. I'm here with our guests, Associate Vice Chancellor Cheryl Harrelson, Natalie Ellers, Senior Executive Director for Alumni Relations, and Jade Pearson, Associate Director of Career Development and Industry Relations in Health Professions at the UC San Diego Career Center. And Jade will be helping co-host with me today. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I thought we could start with some self-introductions. Cheryl, why don't you kick us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, Hassan, and thank you, colleagues. I'm Cheryl Harrelson. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of Alumni and Pipeline Development for UC San Diego. I have the privilege of overseeing alumni career services and athletics giving. I've had a wide portfolio from time to time at UC San Diego, but my career was started in higher ed. I've spent 30 years in higher ed, and I have worked at now 5 institutions, from North Carolina A&T State University, which is a historically Black college and university, James Madison University, Washington State University, New Mexico State University, and now UC San Diego, and soon Georgia State University. I will be going there soon to be the Vice President of Advancement. So I'm happy to be here with you all. Thank you for inviting me.
Congratulations, Cheryl, in your new role. We wish you all the best in the future. We'll be missing you. Natalie, how about you?
Thanks, Hassan, and thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Jade. Really excited to be here today to have this discussion about authenticity. Like was said, my name is Natalie Ellers, pronouns she, her, hers, and I serve as a Senior Executive Director for Alumni Relations at UC San Diego. And Ms. Cheryl Harrelson is also my boss. So my story is very interesting in terms of my career path. Currently, Alumni Relations at UC San Diego for the past 3.5 years. Prior to that was in a similar role at UCLA for 10 years. And I really got into this work starting out first in financial services and then in marketing, communications, and consulting. So it's been not the straight and narrow, but I think the thing that has been authentic to my career story is around community building, is around creating opportunities for communities, individuals to engage in the organizations that I serve. So that has been the thread that has linked the various professions that I have. Looking forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you both. So just to do a quick intro for myself, my name is Jade Pearson, and I currently serve as the Associate Director for Career Development and Industry Relations, specifically for pre-health pre-med, as Hassan said. I currently work with about 10,000 students who are pre-health pre-med. And so I've been doing that here at UCSD Career Center for about 2 years now. And so it's just been really fun. It's been a joy to work with the diverse student population. I've been at the community college and the university setting for about 6 years total, going on 7. Just a little bit about my past. I earned my bachelor's in neuroscience from UC Riverside, and then my master's in counseling with a specialization in college counseling and student services from Cal State Northridge. And so I love, working with underserved populations, helping them realize their full potential, and really achieving upward mobility, not only for themselves, but for generations to follow. And I think that's kind of my vision and my mission for working with students, and it kind of guides all of the work and, the special projects that I do here at UCSD.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, all of you. And one thing we have in common is we were all at UCLA at one point.
Yes.
So either as a student or as a staff member, Jade, even Cheryl. So that's fantastic. All right. Well, I'll kick us off with the first question. So some people argue that alignment with your true self actually manifests itself into happiness. It's profound and interesting. It's a profound and interesting perspective. In fact, there's a study where 72% of people said that being authentic said that they are authentic at work, in fact, and 75% said that they wanted the coworkers to be authentic and display their true selves. However, a small subset of employees, 10%, were skeptical. They believe that showing who they really are would actually backfire. And this process also can take some time. For example, in this study, it took some a year, and some employees also varied in the extent of what they showed. So I want to ask you all, is the prompt correct? Just be yourself, be real. Is this the best advice and approach? Maybe Cheryl, you can start.
Of course, you want me to start. The small advice from a 30-year veteran. I'm at a position now where I get to say a little more than I probably would have 30 years ago. And I would say it really depends. There's no right or wrong answer. I think in my early years, I was discovering myself. So we're a little more bold, when we're younger, we think we know various things. So I don't know that I was as authentic as I am now. Now, I want to make sure I define authenticity in terms of I'm always genuine in my relationships with people, if I'm having a discussion, but being out there, just how I might talk with my friends versus how I talk with people at work are usually two different scenarios. I am usually a pretty different person because I am a supervisor, have been for over 25 years now. As if my friends at home, might greet them, hey, home girl, hey, home boy, that sort of thing. I would not come in and greet staff. And while I would love to do that, some people may find it offensive. Sometimes being your authentic self, people are like, oh, you're aggressive, or you talk loud, so they may think it's shouting or things like that. So you really have to read the room and know whether you can be yourself, or sometimes you may have to spend a little time with people before you let yourself come out.
The read your room comment, Cheryl, was exactly what was coming up for me as a response to that. And I think that you also hit on the idea of what does authenticity mean? Because there's a concept that authenticity could mean honesty versus deception. And that's not the context that we're using it here. I think it is being true to your nature, right? And your nature doesn't always look the same way. You can be true to your nature and be more refined, give deference, show up differently. And I think that there is the practice of how I show up as an individual in the workplace, but it's also the work environment and how that's supportive and makes me feel safe as a staff person. And so there's a lot of factors in whether or not you feel that you can be authentic to who you are. But I just don't want authenticity to be synonymous in this case with being truthful or the rest, and authenticity really being perhaps a statement about knowing your values and knowing who you are. And when it's safe to do so, express it in a manner that's appropriate when you read the room. So that's what I would say, the caveat.
Yeah, I think it's really important, right, to define authenticity like you did, Natalie. And I would agree, it's being true to yourself, being true to your values, and expressing that in a way where you feel like you're being true to yourself, but also you're considering others. And so I love both of your examples, Cheryl, you know, saying, I know you're from I think the South or the East Coast.
Yes, both.
Both, right. So there's a different level of greeting. I was just talking to someone the other day about Southern hospitality and how it's a student actually, and how it's so much different in, California specifically, and how, she was like, maybe I should have gone to UGA instead, because maybe I would have felt more supported in my environment. Maybe I would have gotten more help in my classes. And this is one of the students I was working with from the BRC, or the Black Resource Center. This actually was yesterday. And so it was just interesting kind of hearing about, the experience just regionally. And so I would say that, being yourself and being real can be a great thing. However, depending on the environment you're in, it could backfire on you. Some people may not feel comfortable with where you come from, right? For me, being myself might look different from being someone else's self. And so I don't want to approach, a work environment, for example, and I'm myself and people are talking about me behind my back. Right. And so I think it also comes with, Cheryl, you talked about kind of being a veteran, 30 years. Right. And maybe in the beginning, it was kind of figuring yourself out. And then as time has passed, it became, okay, this is who I am. I feel more comfortable in who I am, and kind of figuring out a way to balance those two identities when you're actually in the workplace. So I think for me, being, I would say an early career professional. So I just got my master's a couple years ago, and then I started here at UCSD right after my master's. And so I'll honestly say I'm glad we're talking about this topic, because it's something that I'm currently working through. How can I talk? How can I act? Do I have to code switch? What are the topics I can talk about with people? Do I feel safe? And so, I'm really glad we're discussing this. But from that, I did want to ask you all the next question, unless you had any responses to what I just said.
So Jade, I just like to say, I think critically, what you said, be open to understanding what you can be and what others can be, and how to respond to people. Yes, I'm from the East Coast. I'm from the South, but I did my undergraduate at UCLA. And it was at UCLA that I learned to love and live with other people, cultures, races, whereas North Carolina, where I come from, was very black and white at that time. So I came out to learn about other people, and now I feel like California is more my home. That's more me than where I grew up. So I think you have to be willing to be open and let things come into your life, which helps you to be able to navigate and be in different spaces.
Definitely. Thank you, Cheryl. So I know, with authenticity, when we talk about being from different regions, and depending on, how you see yourself, your different identities, one identity will be more salient over others. For example, although people may see me, as a Black woman, or they may see me as a scholar, or they may see me as associate director, I identify more with my faith, my community, my family, right? Before I identify with, I would say, being Black and then being a woman. I would probably say it's in that order. And so, going back to career and life design, and that being a journey, and authenticity is a journey too, and understanding your salient identities and what's most important to you is a journey too. And so I want to ask you both, what, if anything, are you still learning about yourself? And what are you still learning to understand about yourself and your salient identities?
Wow, that's a really important question. And it's really important because being a professional is about that, right? It doesn't matter where you start out on the journey, you're always learning to refine, to understand, to communicate. I've moved from being a place where, as a young professional coming out and starting in the career, I was identifying my own space and my own authenticity, to the position I'm in now, where I am responsible for fostering that community amongst my staff and understanding how it transitions from being in the beginning, sort of beginning role, a new position, to being a leader and to setting that culture, and how my authenticity or my relationship with work shifts with those identities and that responsibility. But I think it goes back to a comment Cheryl just made, where she said the best advice, she didn't quite say it this way, but this is what she meant, is to be open. You have to be open to what you can learn. And I don't know how many of these podcasts cover listening, but the listening isn't always to someone else. When we're talking about authenticity, you first have to learn how to listen to yourself. And once you've kind of mastered that, you're kind of equipped then to go to listen to others. And the reason I bring that up is because there's things like imposter syndrome or various biases that become part of your self-dialogue that you then react to, that aren't really authentic to who you are, your experience, or the narrative that is most comfortable for you to be at your optimal in work. And so I would say be open, listen to yourself first, and then listen to others. And we're all on that journey as professionals. And what we need will shift.
Love that. Love that. You have to cut out all the noise, right? To sometimes hear that inner voice. Those are beautiful answers. And I'm just enjoying listening, actively listening and learning from all of you. All right, next question. So if we want a authentically curious culture, we also must have a psychologically safe environment where we all have the permission to be vulnerable. As one Forbes article states, this is generally only achieved in time by allowing people to express opinions in a non-judgmental space, contribute to the greater good of the organization, and be allowed to be different from the status quo without ramifications. What does this mean to you, and how have your experiences helped you find the situations that bring out the best in you?
Yeah, so I agree. You have to feel psychologically, emotionally, mentally safe in an environment to be yourself, to feel a part of. And that doesn't always happen. That doesn't always happen for people. I've been in spaces where I don't feel safe, even though, people may mean for you to feel safe, as much as people look at others and say, your authentic self is this, that, and the other. Sometimes I want to say, yes, your authentic self is this, that, and the other, and we have to be aware of each other. Back to question 2, where we're saying being open, learn about yourself, learn about others, we need to make each other feel safe. I think in this environment, after the pandemic, one of the things that I've learned about myself is I don't like working from home. So I come to the office quite a bit. I have learned that too much of the Zoom kind of time, we don't get to learn about each other authentically. And then that has brought out so many different kinds of aggressions. Yes, it allows for people to be more efficient in their own lives, but it's not allowing us to be efficient with each other. We're not interacting with each other enough. We can't see the body language. And so then when we come back together, everybody's sort of tensed and scared to be around each other. And we somehow have to figure this out, because we've now found our safety within these boxes. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the safety within these boxes is an interesting piece, because I think about that question of psychological safety, emotional safety, the space to be authentically who you are. I just have to be honest, I am never 100% safe. In my own identity, in the context of this country, have never, ever felt safe. Even, I think there are places at home where I do feel safe, and there are moments. And I think, to your point, Cheryl, the working from home, you feel like, well, I'm safe because I'm at home. But if anything we've seen with social media and internet culture is that while you may be physically safe, because of the pervasiveness of media and the way people interact socially in ways that are not careful or not caring and are really harmful, you can be unsafe even if you're sitting at your home, which is supposed to be your safe space, right? And it then begs the question, how do I operate authentically, even in the context of unsafe environments, even in what I would call sometimes hostile spaces that are laden with microaggression? I think my answer to that is that you've got to be motivated for the reason that you're there, right? Like, frankly, I don't come to work for safety. I come to work because of my commitment to the cause. I come to work because I add value, and I come to work for my colleagues and for those interrelationships and the ways that we are having impact together, right? And I have to, some of my internal dialogue is, my authentic self is what makes that work, right? Taking energy away from being my authentic self to try and mirror, become, and understand what other people expect of me takes away from the intentionality of why I'm here, which is for the cause, for the work, to serve the institution and the rest. So I guess, just to summarize my point of view, I think we need to give ourselves grace if we're seeking to ever feel completely safe, because I think that's a false paradigm. I just don't think that exists. And I think we have to, given the fact that in most cases, we are not going to be 100% safe, how do we care for ourselves, and how do we fortify ourselves to work in a way and understand that there's value in authenticity, even in spaces that we aren't 100% safe?
Yeah, these are really good points, and I was kind of thinking along the lines of what you were saying, Natalie, wondering if you are really ever 100% safe in your work environment. You talked about how the country sees us as Black women, and maybe even other intersectional identities, and the history of this country, and how, maybe even you are not physically feeling harm, but there are sometimes microaggressions, right? Asking about hair, asking about skin. And I'm not saying, that happens here at UCSD or anything like that, but I'm sure it does happen. Or I haven't experienced it, at least here at UCSD, but I'm sure it does happen in other spaces where people work. I also wonder the generational divide, because, working with Gen Z and being a millennial myself, we'll get up and leave a job real quick. We'll stay somewhere for 2 months and then like, what?
I'm not feeling safe here. I'm not feeling these people.
Really? I don't feel valued. I don't feel treated well. I'm going to go find somewhere else. And I think that's kind of a trend that we see with Gen Z, students that I work with and, my generation. And so maybe in the future, there will be spaces where people will feel they can be more their authentic selves, with the Black Lives Matters movement, with the, different movements within the LGBTQIA plus community, gender identity, things like that. People, I think, are feeling more included and seen. And so with that, people are showing up more authentically as themselves, maybe wearing clothes. One thing for me is wearing my hair in braids. I never used to wear my hair in braids, right? I always would straighten my hair or slick it back in a bun, because if I showed up the next day with my hair curly and then my braids, the questions that, did your hair grow overnight? So, and then you don't want to answer that question, right? Because it's awkward. It's just like, so then you try and avoid situations where you don't change your hair too much. But now I would say, like, in my identity, I'm like, okay, I'm wearing my hair in braids. I'm wearing my hair however I want. And that's just one aspect, right? So kind of moving into the next question, employees need the courage to be their authentic selves at work. And leaders should not be afraid should not be afraid of uncomfortable conversations and listening to differing viewpoints. This helps us grow stronger together and strive towards diversity and a shared vision, which can only have an impact on your bottom line. Does this resonate with you? And what else can we do as leaders to help people have the courage to be their authentic selves?
It resonates so much. And I think I've mentioned this before, that part of the being your authentic self is why you are a part of a team. And that when we don't get a staff person's authentic self, we sometimes miss out on the best part of them. We miss out on the goal, right? And as a leader, I think getting to the bottom line for an organization or getting to the task, you avoid a lot of pitfalls if you can either create a safe environment, or when individual staff are not feeling safe, have a mechanism where that can be addressed rather than allowing it to fester. And I think, too, there is a responsibility for an organization, institution, or leaders within it to be able to recognize authentic moments, right? And not be threatened by that authenticity, whether it is dress, hair, language, communication style, values, faith, the rest. What becomes a bit of a rub is when someone, in being their authentic self, creates a hostile environment for someone else. And how we navigate that is really important, because my authenticity and the values that I have may come into conflict with someone else's. And so while I think it's important for institutions to be able to recognize authentic self, have conversations when authentic self comes into conflict with the greater community, and also share as an understanding and an organizational culture that authenticity is the gold. Like that's when someone's sitting in their authentic self and doing the work, that's when you're going to get the best work. And that's when you go beyond the expectations. So that's what I'd say to that.
That's actually a great prelude to the next question. So the article written by Forbes, in fact, says when a person shares the values, priorities, and beliefs of the organization, their true self will be celebrated and appreciated by others. Has there ever been a time when there was a mismatch between your values and an organization, or like you said, Natalie, somebody else's? And what did you learn from that situation?
I'll take it. The answer is yes. 100%. And I think I'll go back to something that Jade just said. And it was more in the beginning of my career. I switched careers. I switched industries. I really felt like, these aren't my people. This isn't the work that I want. I mean, I really had an authentic moment of saying, wait a minute, if I were to die today and someone was going to talk about my professional legacy, this is not what I want it to be. And this is a case where I was working in financial services, which was the first career that I had out after leaving school. And I was in that industry for 12 years, but really coming to myself and thinking, I don't want my legacy to be the fact that I had folks get X number of checking accounts or acquire this many customers to the financial institution. And there's no wrong against the financial institution. And there were parts of my work that were more authentic to what was I valued. But I think the first answer was that I changed careers as a result of it. Now, even given my chosen profession in higher ed, and more specifically in alumni engagement work, which, as I started from the beginning, is around community building, there are going to be cases, instances where decisions by one individual leader go against maybe my values or my point of view. And I think in that case, it's a conversation if there's safety there, or it's a reconciliation that, is this in conflict? Is it a different perspective? Is it on the continuum of my values? In other words, are we going to get to the same destination, but just not in agreement about how we get there? Or is this something that is more on the lines of being unethical or immoral or in conflict or that kind of thing? So if it's the latter, definitely I think it's reportable, right? We work for large organizations, and this is where you get whistleblowers and you get folks like that, which I support. If it's the former, where it's just a matter that we may not see eye to eye on the approach, and in being my authentic self, this makes me question, some part or aspect of what I do. If it's minor, I think sometimes being open to changing, to think about it, to try it out, may be a way of me stepping out of my comfort zone, and maybe me discovering that actually that's not too far from who I am. That can be part of me. It's just a new part of me. It's something that I haven't tried before.
So Natalie, I agree with what you said, and you talked about it from career to career. I'll talk about it a little bit from having a similar career for 30 years. I think higher ed absolutely aligns with my values, even though it was never my plan to go into higher ed. It may be people that I misalign with. I will tell you, I've really only had one bad supervisor in my career where I was like, you really do not belong in this field. And it was even a misalignment for them in what they were doing. And I probably only had one person, a couple people that I've misaligned with in terms of values. And so that means you may start off at one place, and people always say, oh, I can't do my work because there's change and there's new supervisors. You're always going to have new supervisors. One place that I was at, I had 6 vice chancellors in 3 years. This kind of thing happens just until you get the right person that's there for a long time. But when it changes like that, you're getting new personalities. You're trying to align with new people. And so I've had twice where the supervisor structure has changed. And I was like, we just don't align, and then at that point, you have to figure out, is this right for me? Can I stay in this? Can you work with the person instead of, and figure it out for yourself?
Yeah. I think I forgot where I read this, but it was saying that people don't necessarily leave an organization because the job is stressful. They'll usually leave because of the people that they work with. They're not getting along either with coworkers or supervisors. And so, again, that can just be a misalignment in values. And so, it does happen. But I think when I share with my students, my journey into higher education, because that actually was never the goal for me either. My goal was pharmacy. And my undergrad was preparing me for pharmacy. And then I was in the pharmacy for about a year. And I realized, as a pharmacy tech, none of this aligns with my interests, my values, or my personality. I didn't get to, it wasn't enough, how do I say, artistic thinking out of the box for me. It was too conventional for me, too much kind of dealing with insurance. There wasn't enough social interaction for me with patients. I more so cared about holistic healing. And, I understand people need their medication, but I think I wanted to kind of move into a different realm, more therapy. And so I got a couple jobs as a behavioral technician. I ended up working later on at one of the community colleges down in Santa Clarita, where I'm from. And I was like, I really love working with these students. And then that's why I went back and got my master's. And so I talk to my students about this all the time when they want to go into different fields, specifically healthcare. Wanting to help people is not enough, right? You need to understand the values of that field that you're choosing. You need to understand that work-life balance. You need to understand the type of people you're working with. There's just so many, I think, aspects that students need to focus on within themselves to be able to make such a long-term commitment to a field. And then, I tell students, go try it out before you get there, and start working for the next 25, 30, 40, 45 years of your life, right? Depending on when you retire. See if that's a space that you resonate with, right? So go do volunteer, go intern, go shadow. And so you don't want to end up where there's a mismatch after you're dedicating over a decade to a field. And then you're like, oh, actually, I don't really like this, right? This doesn't agree with me. So, yeah.
It asks the hard questions. That's right. Well, we have time for one quick lightning round. So I want to ask each of you the following, and Jade mentioned it earlier. Do you code switch at work, and what does that look like?
I do, if I understand the code switch piece, but I don't love that term, so I don't like to claim it. But I certainly, I code switch in life. I don't just code switch at work. In other words, like I don't act the same in church as I do in a club. And yes, I've been to a church and I've been to a club. And I think that's code switching. That's just how we are as human beings. I do something different in a library than I do when I'm out dining. I have a different demeanor and approach in a romantic meal than I do at Thanksgiving. Like, I think that code switch is too heavy and laden with the idea that am I not being Black enough or woman enough or what have you. And I think for me, especially since I have a lot of identities that are not front and center, I am first gen, I'm an immigrant. Just there are a myriad of things that don't show up for people in the first analysis. I think that the idea that I code switch is a misnomer. So yes, I absolutely code switch, and I don't apologize for it, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
Drop the mic.
Unapologetic. Love it.
It's absolutely right. We started off saying, read the room, be open, that sort of thing. When you do those things, you're going to code switch. And absolutely, I do it because I read the room, I look and see what's happening and go from there.
Yeah. It's difficult for me. So I just want to read a quick definition of code switching.
Thank you.
And this is just online, just for people who don't know what code switching is. It is the ways in which a member of an underrepresented group consciously or unconsciously adjusts their language, syntax, grammatical structure, behavior, and appearance to fit into dominant culture. And so it is kind of a heavy concept, right? I would say personally, I do code switch. And honestly, I only code switch at work. I don't code switch anywhere else, with friends, with family, with church, with anything. Maybe I did at one point, as you said, Natalie, the club, and then going to church. But right. And I want to give another context as well, as I think both of you were talking about. In counseling, we learned something called mirroring. And a lot of people do it where you mirror someone because of empathy. It comes from a place of empathy. So you want to make someone feel comfortable. And I would say that's different than maybe code switching. I will say I mirror wherever I'm at in all areas. I would say as far as work, I've just become used to code switching just because of, my environment. I grew up, my family, and then kind of where I went to school, and then the messages that were told me in society that professionalism had to look a certain way. Right. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, yes, it's to feel safe and to make sure that you're not offending anyone, maybe changing for me, like language. So when for example, one of my favorite parts of my week is going to the Black Resource Center. I love it, honestly, because when I get there, I sit and we be talking like this. You feel me? Like that's how we're talking and we're joking. And it's like the little, ooh, not her saying this, like period, like things like that. Right. And I love it. I'm like, man, I can just kind of take a load up. Not that I can't do that, in the actual office of the Career Center. Not that I can't do that. It's more so because everyone around me in the Black Resource Center is talking that way. And that's what I'm used to. I feel now open to talk that way. And so, yes, I would say absolutely I code switch.
We're all learning the ability to navigate careers and lives, our definitions of a happy and meaningful life, and who we are in that masterpiece we call life, that mosaic of moments and experiences. Embedded in that vision is the idea that finding a job or career is not the real goal, but that understanding yourself is the primary challenge in front of you. We will find it at that intersection of our purpose, and it'll evolve from there forever. Thank you to each and every one of you. This was fantastic. So interesting for your insights, for your time, and for sharing who you are. I would love to hear a couple closing thoughts. Jade, I know, has a couple to share.
Yeah, I do echo you, Hassan, in saying that understanding yourself and taking time to identify, those salient parts of identity will help you be more successful in the workplace and beyond. And so, like I said, as a relatively early career professional, it just was really nice to hear everyone's perspective and their journey to showing and being their authentic selves. And I know for me, I still have a long way to go in being comfortable in the spaces that I occupy. And so, but like I tell my students, the career journey and understanding self, it's both are a lifetime, right? And it's a lifetime of discovery and being in different spaces. So I just want to thank you both for sharing your thoughts just on what it means to be yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Jade. I mean, the thing that I would end with is that for me, authenticity is about self-love. And if we can love ourselves, we then have the capacity to love others. And so I know that it's a professional conversation, but I think the point with this journey is that you are who you are, whether you're at work or in another place. And so this conversation about authenticity for me is about self-love. And as you can understand it as such, I think that will help you be your authentic self in the spaces that you occupy, including work.
That's right. And self-love is different than self-care. Mm-hmm. Cheryl, bring us home.
I'm going to try in a short second or two. Natalie and Jade, I love what you've said. Don't stop learning. Mm-hmm. If you stop learning, you can't learn about yourself. Mm-hmm. You can't learn about others. And then you can't be your authentic self, even if you want to be. And even if you're in an environment where you can't be your authentic self, it doesn't mean you need to be quiet, not say anything, not participate, those sorts of things. Know how to do it and be able to provide your point of view and to share with others, because you have knowledge that you can share with people and that people will be interested.
Brilliant and beautiful.
Absolutely.
Love that. I love that. Again, thank you all for your time. How can listeners get in touch with each of you? What's the best way? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is fantastic. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn would be perfect, especially since I'm switching.
Yeah. I would say LinkedIn as well. So just first name, last name, Jade Pearson. You should be able to find me.
Fantastic.
Natalie Ellers, yes, absolutely. Mhm.
Yes, and Cheryl Harrelson.
Fantastic. Well, I leave you all with this message. Every single one of you has a purpose. It's developed from your passion. And when one is on point with that purpose, it can help change the world for the better. What's your motivation? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.